Los Angeles, where beauty dazzles, secrets smolder, and love can turn into betrayal in the blink of an eye. In the glamorous world of the bold and the beautiful, nothing stays perfect for long, and over the next 3 weeks, from July 21st to August 8th, the lives of our favorite characters are about to spiral into chaos, heartbreak, and unexpected redemption. Taylor Hayes thought she was finally on the brink of forever, a wedding, a fresh start, a promise sealed with hope. But Ridge Forrester has never been a man of consistency, and once again, he'll prove that destiny isn't always fair, especially when it favors Brooke Logan. Meanwhile, Liam Spencer is celebrating life after a miraculous medical procedure, until troubling questions arise. Was the tumor ever real, or was it part of a cruel scam? Dr. Grace Buckingham is about to go from hero to disgrace as her carefully constructed lie begins to unravel, putting careers and freedom on the line. And overseas, in the romantic glow of Italy, Nick Marone plans to propose to Brooke. He sees forever in her eyes, but when danger strikes and Ridge swoops in to rescue Brooke from a shocking accident, old feelings resurface with tidal force. The proposal turns to heartbreak, and once again, Ridge and Brooke are pulled back into their twisted, unbreakable bond. Get ready for 3 weeks of explosive twists, tearful goodbyes, and emotional confrontations. As alliances shatter and secrets come to light, the only thing certain in this world of glittering lies is that no love comes without a cost. Welcome to the next chapter of The Bold and the Beautiful. It's going to be unforgettable. The hope that wasn't. Taylor's wedding shattered. It was supposed to be a moment she'd waited her whole life for. Taylor Hayes stood in front of the mirror, the soft silk of her wedding gown hugging her form like a second skin. Her eyes shimmered, not just from the subtle touch of makeup, but from the deep, fragile hope beating inside her chest. This was it. The day Ridge would finally choose her. Not Brooke, not anyone else. Her. For weeks, Ridge had made promises. Late-night conversations filled with laughter, whispered memories of what they once were and what they could be again. He talked about family, about stability, about letting go of old wounds. And Taylor, brilliant, composed, but heartbreakingly human, believed him. Steffy Forrester had cautiously supported her mother's dream, always wary of Ridge's pattern of chasing ghosts from the past. Thomas was more optimistic, thrilled that their family could finally be whole again. Even Eric, seeing his son's supposed clarity, offered his blessing. There were dress fittings, cake tastings, a soft classical trio rehearsing under the Forrester mansion's archway. But as the wedding day approached, something shifted. Ridge grew quieter, distracted. He scrolled through his phone too often, eyes flicking across the screen like he was reading words meant for someone else. When Taylor asked if everything was okay, he smiled. Too quickly. "Just work," he said. But she knew. Deep down, Taylor always knew. Still, she pressed forward. After all, hadn't they come too far to turn back? Across the world in Italy, Brooke Logan stood on a sun-drenched balcony in Capri, a gentle sea breeze brushing through her hair. Beside her, Nick Marone poured 2 glasses of wine. He looked happier than he had in years. Lighter, freer. He talked of new beginnings, of letting the past go, of Brooke finally putting Ridge behind her. And for a moment, she believed she had. They walked along the cliffs. They danced in a candlelit courtyard. And then, under the starlit sky, Nick reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. "Marry me, Brooke. Let's make this real." Her breath caught. She didn't say no, but she didn't say yes either, because in that exact moment, as she looked at Nick, all she could see was Ridge's face, his arms, his voice calling her name. And, as fate would have it, Ridge had arrived in Italy, watching from afar, watching as Brooke hesitated. Back in Los Angeles, the Forrester mansion buzzed with anticipation. Guests gathered. The garden overflowed with white roses. Taylor, radiant in her gown, took one last deep breath as she prepared to walk down the aisle. But Ridge wasn't there. At first, whispers filled the air. Maybe he was running late. Maybe he was fixing a tie or dealing with a business call. But seconds turned to minutes, minutes to an hour. The silence became deafening. Then a call came through from Italy. There had been an accident. Brooke had fallen, slipped from a ledge along the cliffs near the water. She was safe now, pulled from the sea just in time by Ridge. And with that, everything shattered. Taylor dropped the bouquet. Her hands trembled. She turned away from the crowd, eyes brimming with tears she refused to let fall. In her heart, she already knew Ridge had gone to Brooke, not just to save her body, but to claim her heart. Again. Later that night, the dress was draped over a chair. The guests had left. Only Steffi remained, sitting beside her mother, both women silent in their grief. "I should have known," Taylor finally whispered. "I should have known better." "You believed in something beautiful," Steffi replied, her voice shaking. "That's not weakness, Mom. That's love." But Taylor didn't respond. She simply looked out the window at the dark Los Angeles sky, wondering how many times one heart could be broken before it stopped beating for good. Lies in White Coats, Grace's medical scam unveiled. It began with celebration. Liam Spencer was alive, healthy, tumor-free. What was once a terrifying diagnosis had miraculously reversed. And for a moment, the entire Spencer and Forrester families breathed easier. There were tears of joy, hugs that lingered, a second chance at life. Dr. Grace Buckingham was hailed as a miracle worker. Alongside a private team of researchers and colleagues from a boutique clinic, she had intervened just in time to save Liam from what had appeared to be a rare but aggressive brain tumor. Bill Spencer, never one to wear his heart on his sleeve, had offered her his personal gratitude and a generous financial donation. Grace had smiled modestly, almost shyly, before disappearing into the crowd of white coats. But beneath that calm surface, something darker stirred. Finn, a doctor himself, couldn't shake the gnawing feeling in his gut. The scans didn't add up. The pathology report felt too clean, the timelines too convenient. And Liam, even he began to question how something so deadly had just vanished. "I don't remember ever having symptoms that extreme," Liam confided to Finn one afternoon. "No headaches, no vision loss, just anxiety, dizziness." But Grace was so certain. "She wanted you to be," Finn said, voice low. That one sentence opened the door. Finn began digging. He reviewed the original scan, blurry, almost unreadable. The name of the lab? A no-name testing facility with no medical license on file. The colleague Grace claimed to have worked with had no digital footprint. Emails sent to the clinic bounced back. Every lead, every thread Finn tugged unraveled a little more of the story, until the whole thing began to stink of fraud. Still, he wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation. But when he confronted Grace in the hospital corridor one afternoon, the color drained from her face before he even said a word. "Was it real, Grace?" he asked. "The tumor, the treatment, any of it?" She paused. Too long. "I did what I had to do," she finally whispered. "You don't understand. I was drowning. The debt, the threats." Finn's voice turned cold. "So, you faked a diagnosis and preyed on a family's worst fear. You made Liam believe he was dying. For money?" Grace's hand shook. "Bill Spencer would have never helped me if he didn't think it was urgent. I was out of options." Word spread fast. Bill erupted. The man who had quietly donated a fortune now wanted blood. He stormed into the hospital, demanding answers. Liam watched, numb, as the entire truth was exposed. The panic, the anguish, the quiet nights wondering if he would ever see his daughter grow up, all built on a lie. Grace was suspended pending investigation, her license revoked. She tried to defend herself, offered sob stories, tears, apologies, but no one was listening anymore. Ridge, back from Italy, stood silently beside Bill as the police escorted Grace away, his jaw tight, his thoughts elsewhere. Perhaps on Brooke, perhaps on the wreckage he'd left behind with Taylor, perhaps on the ever-growing weight of lies in their world. That evening, Finn sat with Steffi on their porch, both of them processing the week's chaos. "Liam's alive," she said. "That should be all that matters." "But it wasn't a miracle," Finn replied, staring into the distance. "It was a manipulation. And I let it happen under my nose." "You trusted someone," she whispered. "That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." But trust, once broken, is a fragile thing to rebuild. And for Liam, for Finn, and for the Spencers, Grace's betrayal wasn't just professional, it was personal. In a world where science can be twisted and love can be weaponized, even the saviors can become villains. As Grace's downfall sends shockwaves across Los Angeles, the fallout has only just begun. The Italian Escape, Brooke and Nick's Lost Future, approx 3,500 to 4,000 characters. Capri in the summertime sparkled like a fantasy, its cobblestone streets glowing under golden sunlight, its waves whispering secrets along the cliffs. For Brooke Logan, it was an escape from the expectations of Los Angeles, from Ridge's endless indecision, and from the ache of believing she might never find lasting love. Nick Marone had promised her a different kind of life, one where the past didn't hang over every kiss like a ghost. He had arrived with charm, ease, and a promise that felt genuine. Let's write a new story together. Brooke had accepted the offer, only cautiously. But as the days unfolded, something shifted. Nick was all in. Laughter in every moment. Wine at every sunset. He had learned from the mistakes of his youth, and his focus was singular. Brooke. He held her hand through ancient ruins. He kissed her forehead during ferry rides across the bay. He whispered in her ear that this could be forever. And just when the moment felt right, he acted. On a private balcony overlooking the sea, Nick knelt down on one knee. The velvet box in his hand opened to reveal a breathtaking diamond ring, its shimmer competing only with the stars overhead. "Marry me, Brooke," he said softly. "We've wasted enough time. Let's build something real." Brooke's breath caught. Her heart pounded, but not from excitement, from conflict. She wanted to say yes. She needed to say yes. But then, like a haunting echo, Ridge Forrester's name returned to her mind. The man who had broken her heart more times than she could count. The man she'd once vowed never to trust again. The man who, no matter how far she ran, seemed to own a piece of her soul. She didn't answer right away. She smiled, kissed Nick's cheek, and whispered, "Let me think." But fate had already made its decision. Unknown to either of them, Ridge had followed her to Italy. Driven by jealousy and the sharp sting of seeing Brooke with another man, he had boarded a plane. Maybe he came to stop her. Maybe he came to watch her move on and finally find closure. Or maybe he didn't know what he was doing at all. He stood on the sidelines, hiding behind sunglasses and shadows, watching as Nick lifted her hand to his lips, watching as Brooke smiled, watching as his future unraveled before him, until chaos broke the stillness. Brooke, laughing, leaned over the edge of a rocky path along the cliffs. A careless step, a loose stone, a scream. She slipped. Nick shouted. A tourist gasped, but it was Ridge who ran. In a flash, he lunged forward, dove over the barrier, and caught Brooke just as she hit the water. They splashed beneath the surface, tangled in panic and history. Ridge pulled her to shore, soaked and trembling, holding her tightly in his arms. As paramedics arrived, Brooke clung to him. And, in that moment, nothing else existed. Not Nick, not Taylor, not logic. Just Ridge, the man who had saved her life. Again. Back at the villa later that night, Brooke sat wrapped in a towel, her hair still wet, her hands shaking. Ridge knelt before her. "I didn't come here to interfere," he said, "but I couldn't stay away. I couldn't let you go. Not again." Tears fell. Words became whispers. And then they kissed. Across town, Nick watched from a distance. He had arrived with a bouquet, a second proposal attempt in mind, but when he saw them, Ridge holding her, Brooke leaning into his chest, he understood, not with anger, but with deep, aching resignation. Some people are fire, others are comfort. And Brooke, she would always choose the fire. He turned and walked away without a word. The next morning, Brooke awoke beside Ridge. Her fingers grazed his, and for the first time in a long time, she felt whole, but also afraid. Because she knew what this meant. For Taylor, for Nick, for herself. It wasn't just a reunion, it was a reset. And resets always come with collateral damage. The aftershock. Ridge chooses Brooke, again. The flight back to Los Angeles was quiet. Ridge sat beside Brooke, her hand resting in his, their eyes locked on the endless sky through the window. Neither of them said much, and yet everything had already been said. In that moment on the cliff, in that desperate rescue, in the kiss that followed, the past, in all its pain and passion, had come rushing back like a wave, and once again, it had pulled them under. Brooke didn't wear Nick's ring. Ridge didn't speak of Taylor. But silence has its consequences. Back at the Forrester mansion, Taylor waited, still in her dress, still holding on to hope. The ceremony had been postponed, not canceled. That's what she told herself. Ridge had gone to Italy to handle something urgent with Brooke, but he'd be back. He always came back. They had come too far. Too many promises had been made. Steffi was less convinced. Her father hadn't responded to a single message. No calls, no updates, just silence. She watched her mother pace the living room, bouquet long since wilted, a champagne flute untouched. Taylor kept checking her phone, her eyes full of doubt, masked as optimism. But when the door opened, when Ridge finally walked through, everything froze. He wasn't wearing a suit. He didn't come with flowers or apologies. He came with Brooke. The room felt like it lost all oxygen. Taylor rose slowly. "Where have you been?" Ridge looked her in the eye, guilt already choking his words. "Taylor, You don't have to explain," she interrupted, voice trembling. "I already know." Brooke tried to speak, but Taylor held up a hand. "Don't. Please don't." What followed was a storm of grief, betrayal, and fury. Taylor's voice cracked as she unloaded years, decades, of buried pain. "I believed you. Again. I let myself think maybe this time would be different. That I mattered more than history, more than your obsession with her." "Taylor, I didn't plan this," Ridge offered. "But you let it happen," she fired back. "You always do. You tell me I'm your future, and then you go running to her the moment she stumbles." Steffi stepped in, shielding her mother, glaring at her father. "How many times are you going to do this to her?" "To all of us." Ridge could only bow his head. "I'm sorry." It wasn't enough. It never had been. Later that evening, Taylor stood alone on the balcony. The wedding dress now hung limply from a hanger, her hair unpinned, her eyes raw from tears. Thomas joined her in silence, handing her a glass of wine. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Their family had been broken too many times for words to fix it now. "I was so sure," Taylor whispered. "So sure this time I wouldn't be the one left behind." "You weren't wrong to hope," Thomas said. "You were wrong to trust him." She turned to face her son. "I don't want to be this woman anymore, the one waiting to be chosen." "Then don't be," he replied. "Be the one who walks away." In a separate wing of the house, Brooke and Ridge sat quietly. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" she asked. "I don't know," Ridge answered honestly, "but I know I couldn't let you go, not this time." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "You always say that." And he always meant it, until the next time he didn't. Still, they leaned into each other, finding warmth in familiarity, in shared history. Two people chasing the feeling they once had, hoping this time, maybe, it wouldn't fall apart. But not everyone was willing to forgive so easily. Steffi, heartbroken for her mother, vowed never to forget this betrayal. Her relationship with Ridge had taken a hit, perhaps one that couldn't be repaired. She watched him now, not as a daughter, but as a woman who had learned what patterns look like. And Liam? He observed everything from a distance. Grace's lies, Taylor's public humiliation, Ridge and Brooke's carousel of destruction. Something in him shifted, a slow-burning realization that in this world love is rarely pure and almost never fair. As Ridge and Brooke rekindle their romance yet again, others are left in the ruins of what could have been. But the question lingers, can love built on repeated betrayal ever lead to peace? Or is it just another heartbreak waiting to happen? The fallout, Steffi's fury and Liam's doubts. Steffi Forrester had always been her father's fiercest defender. Through all the years of chaos, infidelity, and the back and forth between Taylor and Brooke, she'd clung to the belief that Ridge, at his core, was a man of honor. But now, watching her mother cry alone in a house once meant for celebration, something inside Steffi broke. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She turned cold. "You didn't just hurt Mom," she told Ridge, her voice steady but ice-edged. "You humiliated her." Ridge tried to explain. "It wasn't meant to happen that way. I didn't plan it." "Stop using that excuse," Steffi snapped. "You never plan anything, Dad. You just react. To Brooke. Every time." His face crumbled under the weight of her words. "I love you, Steffi." She blinked, unmoved. "Then start acting like it." Later, Steffi found her mother sitting in the garden, the once beautiful wedding roses now beginning to wilt. Taylor was still in disbelief, her body present but her spirit hollow. "I'm so tired of being second," she murmured. "Even when I'm first, I'm still second." Steffi wrapped an arm around her. "You don't have to prove your worth to him anymore, or anyone." It was the kind of comfort they both needed, and the kind Ridge no longer deserved. Across town, Liam Spencer walked the beach alone. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the sand. The same way recent events cast shadows over his mind. He had been so focused on living, on surviving what he thought was a terminal diagnosis, that he hadn't questioned the why. Now that Grace Buckingham's lies had been exposed, everything felt tainted. He had spent weeks preparing to die. He had written letters to his daughter, made peace with his regrets, even reached out to people he'd once pushed away. And now, knowing that the diagnosis was fake, that Grace had manipulated his father into funding a phony treatment, it felt like being tricked into trauma. Worse, it made him question the sincerity of everything around him. Was anyone in his life truly honest? Finn had known something was off, and he'd followed the evidence. That made Liam respect him more. But it also made him wonder, why didn't I see it? Why did I trust so blindly? He met with Bill the next morning, both men still trying to make sense of the damage. "I should have seen it," Bill muttered, pacing. "I gave her $500,000. Didn't even hesitate." "You're not the only one," Liam said quietly. "I believed her too." Bill slammed his fist against his desk. "That's not the point, Liam. She used your life as leverage. That's not just fraud. That's evil." Liam nodded slowly, then looked up. "Do you think someone else was involved?" Bill paused. "What are you saying?" "I mean, Grace didn't act alone. She had fake labs, forged reports, silent partners. What if someone else helped her? Someone inside?" Bill's face darkened. "If that's true, I'll burn the whole system down to find them." Meanwhile, Finn continued working behind the scenes. He met with hospital administrators, pushed for a formal review of every patient Grace had treated. He combed through records. Something didn't sit right. Not just about Liam's diagnosis, but the speed and precision with which Grace had orchestrated the entire scam. "Either she's a mastermind," Finn told Steffi, "or she had help." "You think someone wanted Liam to suffer?" Steffi asked. "I think someone wanted Bill to suffer," Finn replied. "Grace just knew how to play her part." Steffi's eyes narrowed. "And that means this isn't over." Back at the Forrester mansion, Taylor packed a suitcase. She wasn't running. She was reclaiming her peace. "I need space," she told Steffi. "Time away, somewhere Ridge and Brooke don't exist." Steffi kissed her cheek. "Go. We'll be here when you're ready." Taylor looked around one last time, at the flowers, the photos, the memories of what almost was, then walked out the door, shoulders straighter than they'd been in days. And, in the distance, a storm was brewing. Not of love, but of reckoning. Grace may have been the first to fall, but the lies she exposed would set off a chain reaction. Trust had been fractured, loyalties questioned, and as the truth continued to unravel, even the strongest bonds would be tested. Because in the bold and the beautiful, no secret stays hidden forever. Truth, tears, and new beginnings. The aftermath was quieter than expected. No grand confrontations, no screaming matches, just the sound of lives reshuffling, of relationships being redefined, and of a new, heavier silence falling over the Forrester and Spencer families. The kind of silence that comes only after too many words have been spoken and too many hearts have been broken. Grace Buckingham's name was removed from hospital directories, her office door sealed. The once celebrated doctor was now under formal investigation for fraud, medical malpractice, and conspiracy to commit financial deception. The court would decide her fate, but in the court of public opinion, she had already lost. During her hearing, Grace broke down on the stand. She spoke of debt collectors, of sick parents, of a desperate need to stay afloat in a system that chewed up even the best doctors. But no one was moved, not Bill, not Liam, not the board. She had made choices, and those choices had nearly destroyed lives. Brooke, meanwhile, was struggling to feel at peace. Ridge had chosen her again. But as they sat side by side on the terrace, sipping wine under the California sun, she couldn't help but feel the weight of what it had cost. Nick had left without a word. Taylor was gone. And the look in Steffi's eyes every time they crossed paths. That would take years to fade. "I love you," Ridge said gently, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "I know," Brooke replied, "but sometimes I wonder if that's enough." It was a quiet confession, not a rejection, but not quite a reassurance either. Yea, for together. Because love, for all its poetry and promises, always came at a price. And, in their world, that price was often someone else's pain. At Spencer Publications, Liam returned to work. He sat at his desk, staring at a blank screen, wondering if he even recognized the man who had started this year thinking he was going to die. The diagnosis may have been fake, but the feelings it stirred, the regret, the self-reflection, the desperation to find meaning, were real. He had seen who truly stood by him, and who didn't. It changed something in him, not in an obvious dramatic way, but slowly, like water eroding stone. Finn approached him one afternoon with a new file, quietly placing it on the desk. "What's this?" Liam asked. "Everything Grace touched," Finn replied. "Every patient, every deal, every clue we missed." Liam stared at the file for a long moment. "You still think someone else was pulling strings?" Finn nodded. "I don't just think it, I know it." Elsewhere in Los Angeles, Steffi poured herself a glass of wine and stood alone on the balcony of the Cliff House, staring out into the horizon. Her mother was somewhere in Europe now, reclaiming peace, writing a new chapter far from Ridge's gravitational pull. It should have felt like a relief, but it didn't. It felt like a warning. People leave when they're tired of waiting to matter. And Steffi vowed that she would never become that woman. Not with Finn, not with anyone. She had grown up watching love hurt the women in her life. Now she wanted something else: stability, honesty, choice. That night, Ridge received a message on his phone, an image of a diamond ring sitting at the bottom of a Venetian canal. No name, no caption, but he knew. Nick had said his goodbye in the only way Ridge would understand. Brooke saw it too, and for a moment, she closed her eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry." Not to Ridge, not out loud, just to the universe, for all the damage that always seemed to follow love. But even in a world bruised by secrets, there is always a new beginning. Taylor checked into a villa in Tuscany, far from the noise. She opened a notebook, began to write, not about Ridge, not about what she'd lost, but about who she wanted to become. Grace, awaiting trial, received a letter in her cell. No signature, just one sentence. "You were never supposed to take the fall alone." And Liam? He stood on the beach one final time that week, watching his daughter run through the waves, her laughter carried by the wind. He smiled, not because everything was okay, but because, maybe for the first time, he wasn't pretending. In the city of angels, even the most beautiful truths come with scars, but every ending holds the seed of a new story. And in the bold and the beautiful, those stories never stay quiet for long. Thank you for joining us for this exclusive 3-week preview of The Bold and the Beautiful. With heartbreak, scandal, betrayal, and redemption just beginning to unfold, there's never been a better time to stay tuned. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for daily updates, in-depth breakdowns, and every jaw-dropping twist coming your way. Hello and goodbye for now.